Hi there, everybody. Welcome to our open book. Very good to be with you tonight. Hi there, John Mahoney, Karen Smith, Lori Morris, John O'Hara, Monica Beraldi, Burgita, Chris S.R., Maggie, Diana, Joan Denny, Karen Smith. I was wrong. Andrew Krivak, Meal Boy, tomorrow night. Tonight. Hi there, Mr. Dickens. Very good to see you. We're moving some books around today. And George Orwell's All Art is Propaganda, some critical essays. And I happened upon, and this is unusual for me, an Orwell essay that I had not previously read.
This is the joy of open books.
This is the
I
joy of
want
open
this
book.
book.
So it is May 3, 1946, from Tribune, which was a short-lived kind of leftist publication in the UK through the war, and then I think to 1949. He was a book reviewer and wrote a general interest column, and this is called Confessions of a Book Reviewer. It's utterly hilarious, and I should explain, none of it applies to our friend Ron Charles. George Orwell writes, in a cold but stuffy bed-sitting room littered with cigarette ends and half-empty cups of tea, a man in a moth-eaten dressing gown sits at a rickety table trying to find room for his typewriter among the piles of dusty papers that surround it. He cannot throw the papers away because the waste paper basket is already overflowing, and besides, somewhere among the unanswered letters and unpaid bills, it is possible that there is a check for 2 guineas, which he is nearly certain he forgot to pay into the bank. There are also letters with addresses which ought to be entered in his address book. He has lost his address book, too, and the thought of looking for it, or indeed looking for anything, afflicts him with acute impulses. He is a man of 35, but looks like he's 50. He is bald, but has varicose veins and wears spectacles, or would wear them if his only pair were not chronically lost. If things are normal with him, he will be suffering from malnutrition, but he has recently had a lucky streak. He will be suffering from a hangover. At present, it is 11:30 in the morning. According to his schedule, he should have started work 2 hours ago. But even if he has made any serious effort to start, he would have been frustrated by the almost continuous ringing of the telephone bell, the yells of the baby, the rattle of an electric drill out in the street, and the heavy boots of his creditors clumping up and down the stairs. The most recent interruption was the arrival of a second post, which brought him 2 circulars and an income tax demand printed in red. Needless to say, this person is a writer. He might be a poet, a novelist, or a writer of film scripts or radio features, for all literary people are very much alike, but let us say that he is a book reviewer. Half hidden among the pile of papers is a bulky parcel containing 5 volumes, which his editor has sent with a note suggesting that they, quote, ought to go well together. They arrived 4 days ago, but for 48 hours the reviewer was prevented by moral paralysis from opening the parcel. Yesterday, in a resolute moment, he ripped the string off, found the 5 volumes to be Palestine at the Crossroads, Scientific Dairy Farming, A Short History of European Democracy. This one is 680 pages long and weighs 4 pounds. Tribal Customs in Portuguese, East Africa, and a novel, It's Nicer Lying Down, probably included by mistake. His review, 800 words, has got to be in by midday tomorrow. 3 of the books deal with subjects of which he is so ignorant that he will have to read at least 50 pages if he is to avoid making some howler which will betray him, not merely to the author, who of course knows all about the habits of book reviewers, but even to the general reader. By 4 in the afternoon, he will have taken the books out of their wrapping paper, but will still be suffering from a nervous inability to open them. The prospect of having to read them, and even the smell of the paper, affects him like the prospect of eating cold ground rice pudding flavored with castor oil. And yet, curiously enough, his copy will get to the office on time. Somehow, it always does get there in time. At about 9 p.m., his mind will go relatively clear, and until the small hours, he will sit in a room which grows colder and colder, while the cigarette smoke grows thicker and thicker, skipping expertly through one book after another and laying each down with the final comment, God, what tripe! In the morning, blear-eyed, surly, and unshaven, he will gaze for an hour or two at a blank sheet of paper until the menacing finger of the clock frightens him into action. Then suddenly, writes Orwell, he will snap into it. All the stale old phrases, a book that no one should miss, something memorable on every page, of special value are the chapters dealing with, etc., etc., will jump into their places like iron filings obeying the magnet. And the review will end up exactly the right length with just about 3 minutes to go. Meanwhile, another wad of ill-assorted, unappetizing books will have arrived by post, so it goes on, and yet, with what high hopes this downtrodden, nerve-racked creature started his career only a few years ago.
This is a lovely reading for open books.
This is great. So Orwell asks, do I seem to exaggerate? I ask any regular reviewer, anyone who reviews, say, a minimum of 100 books a year, whether he can deny in honesty that his habits and character are such as I have described. Every writer, in any case, is rather that kind of person, but the prolonged, indiscriminate reviewing of books is a quite exceptionally thankless, irritating, and exhausting job. Not only involves praising trash, it does involve that, as I will show in a moment, but constantly inventing reactions toward books about which no one has any spontaneous feelings whatsoever. The reviewer, jaded though he may be, is professionally interested in books, and out of the thousands that appear annually, probably 50 or 100 that he would enjoy writing about. If he is a top-notcher in his profession, he may get hold of 10 or 20, or probably he gets hold of 2 or 3. The rest of his work, however conscientious he may be, in praising or damning, is in essence humbug. As I say, none of this applies to Ron Charles or Carlos Lozada, right?
True.
Or anybody who's going to review my book.
No.
He is pouring his immortal spirit down the drain, half a pint at a time. The great majority of reviewers give an inadequate or a misleading account of the book that is dealt with. Since the war, he means World War II, this was 1946, publishers have been less able than before to twist the tails of literary editors and evoke a paean of praise for every book that they produce. But on the other hand, the standard of reviewing has gone down owing to lack of space and other inconveniences. Seeing the results, people sometimes suggest that the solution lies in getting book reviewing out of the hands of book reviewers. Books on specialized subjects ought to be dealt with by experts, and on the other hand, a good deal of reviewing, especially of novels, might well be done by amateurs. That's what's going on with, websites now. Nearly every book is capable of arousing passionate feeling, if it is only a passionate dislike in some or another reader, whose ideas about it would surely be worth more than those of a bored professional. But unfortunately, as every editor knows, that kind of thing is very difficult to organize. Not any longer, right? The web has done that. In practice, the editor always finds himself reverting to his team of hacks, his regulars, as he calls us. None of this is remediable so long as it is taken for granted that every book deserves to be reviewed. It is almost impossible to mention books in bulk without grossly overpraising the great majority of them. Until one has some kind of professional relationship with books, one does not discover how bad the majority of them are. Well, I don't know, George. In much more than 9 cases out of 10, the only objectively truthful criticism would be, I don't like this book at all. Well, the truth about the reviewer's own reaction would probably be, this book does not interest me in any way whatsoever, and I would not write about it unless I was paid to. But the public will not pay to read that kind of thing.
They would have to.
They would, yeah. Why should they?
I mean, to read the book, they would have to pay.
That's it. They want some kind of guide to the books that they're asked to read, and they want some kind of evaluation. But as soon as values are mentioned, standards collapse. For if one says, and nearly every reviewer says this kind of thing at least once a week, that King Lear is a good play and The Four Just Men is a good thriller, which meaning is there in the word? What meaning is there in the word good? The best practice, it has always seemed to me, would be to simply ignore the great majority of books and to give very long reviews, 1,000 words, to that few that seem to matter. Short notes of a line or two on forthcoming books can be useful, but the usual middle-length review of about 600 words is bound to be worthless even if the reviewer genuinely wants to write it. Normally, he doesn't want to write it, and the week-in, week-out production of snippets soon reduces him to the crushed figure in a dressing gown whom I described at the beginning of this article. However, everyone in this world has someone else whom he can look down on. And I must say, from the experience of both trades, that the book reviewer is better off than the film critic. Film critics, after all, cannot do his work at home. But he has to attend trade shows at 11 in the morning, and with 1 or 2 notable exceptions, is expected to sell his honor for a glass of inferior sherry.
It's a good essay.
George Orwell's very pointed 1946 review, Confessions of a Book Critic.
And he stopped being a book critic after this and became a writer.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Right.
What am I doing here?
He's a writer already. One of the greats, as you know, one of my inspirations. Not that I make any, So, yeah. Did someone say Animal Farm? Yeah, that's what I should
LOL.
do. Yeah. So, yes, it was Andrew. So, tomorrow, Andrew Krivak and his really wonderful novel, Mule Boy. Let me just read. I can't even read the first sentence because this book is all, as we will talk about, one long sentence.
What?
Yep.
Is it a recording of me speaking?
But let me just read the beginning to get ready for Andrew Krivak tomorrow. And on that day he walked the dirt road, from the patch past the colliery toward the entrance of the shaft, the only light visible coming from the breaker with its multitude of filament bulbs inside and outside, and along each apparatus that drove it shining brighter than any constellation any man or boy who labored within, around, or below that breaker would ever see, and he could hear it, alive and throbbing with its steady heartbeat, throb that pounded away while he slept, pounded away when he woke, pounded away the length of every day that was work in that mine, he even remembering as a boy, sick in bed, in the clapboard patch, house, and gazing out the window at the behemoth, asking his mother if only it would ever stop, and without turning to look at the structure that hulked there, lit and monstrous against the backs of calm and the blue mountain hills and the sky, she said, when all creation has ceased to groan, Andro, when all creation has ceased to groan, and he walketh around the ruts of water iced over the road, the mountains to the east in a shadowed silhouette against the graying sky, and he could see their outlines standing and waiting by the head frame, the miners, their buddies, and Ruka, the one-armed Ruthenian who worked the lift.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And you had a lovely interview with him on Saturday.
Yeah. So we're eager to speak with him. So thanks very much for being with us on our open book. And we'll see you tomorrow with Andrew Krivak. Hope so. Take care. Have a good night. Bye-bye.